Good evening, everyone. This is the Perrysburg City Council for July 19, 2022. Please have a roll call.
Mr. Fuller.
Here.
Mr. Coleman. Ms. Materney. Here. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Van Hoosen.
Here.
Mr. Weber.
Here. Thank you. If you're able, please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes of council meeting for June 28, 2022.
Thank you, Mayor. Everyone has received copies of the council meeting minutes. I did not hear any responses or complaints on it, so if there is no objections, we will consider the meeting minutes approved. Hearing none, they're approved.
Thank you. We have citizen concerns. We've had residents reach out, say they want to be on the agenda, and we have put them on the agenda to discuss the issue with foxtail, about foxtail barley problem. As council knows, and some of the residents would know, the administration has direct correspondence to the state to see whether foxtail barley is properly classified, and hopefully that could be changed to be identified as a noxious weed. But I'll give everybody who wants to speak a chance. So this is your opportunity. Just come up to the mic, say your name and address, and then 2 to 3 minutes to voice your concern. Council may or may not ask questions or may decide what it wants to do at the conclusion. It's all yours.
Good evening, City Council. My name is J.R. Miazga. I live at 1395 Running Brook Drive in Perrysburg. So, to be clear, I'm not a politician, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a farmer or someone that rents out land for farming use. I don't have knowledge about any of these subjects. I'm just the average City of Perrysburg resident, humbly coming before you to express a concern and potentially offer solutions with the help of my neighbors and friends. Listen, there are several things that the city does right. But right now, we're talking about public safety. And as we know, city government is responsible for making sure that we're safe. And not only us, but our pets as well. Diane Razier, on June 24th, initially contacted City Council. 6/28, June 28th, she contacted social media. And then she went back to the city on June 28th. Linda Templeton went to the City Council on June 23rd. Written communication to the council on 6/28. And then she went to social media on 6/29. It's because of these two ladies that my dogs are alive today. Because of social media. It's because of these two ladies I don't have to look my daughters in the eye as we bury one of our dogs that was seriously ill. So imagine waking up to take your dogs for a walk. Open the sliding glass door to your backyard and see these cottonwood type things up 2, 3, 4 feet, covering your lawn like snow. You step down into them not knowing what it is. It's organic plant substance. I'm a 7-time returning war veteran with 20 years of military service. I've been hunting since I've been old enough to walk. My father had a gun in his hand. I am not unfamiliar with plants, but I've never seen seeds of this foxtail barley plant clumped together in layers that they did. I've never seen the seeds really ever like this. And yet this seed has barbs on it that tunnel into soft tissue. Our dogs, if they get a little bit in their mouth, they start getting upset. Well, what does a dog do when it gets sick? It eats grass. Guess where the foxtail barley is? So it starts eating more of it. So at some point, 15 pieces of foxtail barley get taken out of one of my dogs. That's from the veterinarian. And there's blood on a lot of them, so if you are sensitive to that, please don't look at it. I'm talking to you as a Pearisburg citizen. I'm talking to you as a father. I'm talking to you as a husband. I'm talking to you as somebody that is asking you to keep us safe. Because this isn't only going to affect our dogs. Someone's posting articles and doing the research like Linda Templeton did when it came to my dogs and said, hey, by the way, this is toxic to your dog, you should watch out. Someone's also doing research to say, hey, this can affect toddlers, children, anyone with soft tissue. There is no prejudice. How many of you went to social media to spread awareness? How many of you got the word out? How many of you cared until now that the media is here? I am upset. I am getting loud, and I am frustrated. But if you looked your children in the eye and saw what I saw, as one of my dogs was wheezing, struggling to breathe, you would be too. The city's not always going to have the answer, but it's important that the city communicates its intent to aggressively find one out. Through the democratic process, you can assign a special forces team or a special task force just to figure out what you're dealing with if it's unprecedented. Do something. Show us you're doing something immediately. Maybe you're doing that. Maybe I'm unaware of that. Maybe each and every one of you have already went to social media and have pushed out awareness. I hope that's the case. What are we going to do now? I offer only one solution. There's foxtail barley and mini fields. Why not get the fire department involved and do a control burn? Training for them, and it helps with the private properties getting rid of this nuisance. Immediately, now. It's a win-win for everybody. They get training, the problem gets taken care of. Outside of that, if a private property doesn't want to comply, our safety is more important. The safety of our children are more important than what the landowner thinks, I think. And so I would push the council to look at eminent domain. It's a hard word, but you gotta stop looking tunnel vision when it comes to the safety of your citizens and their children. Again, my name's Jeremy Osgood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Take your jar. Oh, I have to take this. Good evening. Thank you for considering our voices. What the heck?
Get close to the mic.
My name is Linda Templeton, and I live at 1454 Turnberry Lane in the Village at River Place condominiums. I'd like to make some comments on behalf of myself and my neighbors who reside in my community, which sits directly next to this field. Most of the residents in our community are seniors. Some are in their 80s and 90s. The main appeal for seniors to purchase a condo is that we don't have to do lawn maintenance, and therefore we don't own mowers, yard tools, blowers, etc. When we had this initial weed storm back in mid-June, we were inundated with this stuff, covering our AC units, getting into our garages and patios up to 2 feet deep. It had created quite a hardship to us to get this stuff cleaned up. It is not amenable to being raked, cannot be picked up with the hands, and blowers do not work on it. As a result, we continue to have large amounts of this stuff on our property. We've been unable to find an effective means to clean it all up. We also have a community pool, and these weeds have clogged up the pool filters, requiring cleaning the filters every 4 hours because they are completely filled with these weeds. Many residents have dogs who must be taken outside several times a day. Because of the life-threatening danger of these weeds, awns, or barbs, it's not safe to take the dogs out. Some owners are driving their dogs to a different area of town to potty them several times a day. These weeds are also a threat to infants and young children as well as to adults, and can cause chronic and long-term respiratory problems, and can be very difficult to diagnose. It can take months for medical professionals to even figure out what is wrong with this child's lung. In fact, I brought a few articles. I'm happy to provide extra copies for the council members if you'd like to see it, regarding children and these
Are those
barbs
ones you
that,
sent to us today?
I'm sorry?
Are those ones you sent to me today?
I think I have some extras in addition to
I
the ones.
forwarded them to all council.
Did you? Okay. I think I have a couple extras, but it details with pictures these foxtails that have been taken out of children's lungs. You know, we all know children get out in the yard, they play, they roll around, you know. If you've got this much deep of these foxtail barleys, I don't know how you can, you know. It's rare for children to for this to happen to a child, but it's also extremely rare for any residential district to have this amount of foxtail barley, you know, to go out in your yard and have 2 feet of foxtail barley. I've never seen this stuff in my life. We have spoken to the property owner of the farm about getting some help with removing this debris from our grounds, and we were offered no assistance. Our condo association may have to consider hiring professionals to clean this up, or purchase commercial mulchers, blowers, with the hopes of getting it off the property so that the owner's dogs can use the common areas again. This expense could possibly cause our association dues to increase. The biggest concern, however, is that thousands of these weed plants are still occupying this field. There are millions of seeds on these plants which have not yet dispersed, but they will at some point. If we get a strong windstorm, or if the farmer does any harvesting in this field, these seeds will again bring a new influx of these noxious seeds, and we'll be back to square one. A controlled burn of this field may be the only option that will eliminate these weeds effectively. A point of interest is that the farmer has stated that the foxtail barley weeds took hold in this field because he was unable to put down an herbicide in the spring due to heavy rains. However, it's interesting that a short drive down Route 199 or Route 25 will demonstrate many fields of soybeans and other crops that are very robust and healthy looking and are not filled with these noxious weeds. So it does not pass the common sense test. If there are other farmers in the area who were able to get our herbicide put down in spite of rain, why wasn't this farmer? We would like some answers to these questions and would like to request that the city assist us in requiring that the property owner take responsibility and provide assistance to the seniors in our community, all of the residents in our community, to help clean up this debris, as well as eliminate the remainder of these weeds from the field. We definitely do not want to have a repeat of this problem next summer. Thank you all for your consideration of our concerns.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott Fish. I'm actually Linda's neighbor.
Yeah, you don't have to leave that. It's a pretty good mic, so you don't,
Huh?
it's a pretty good mic, so you
Okay,
don't
cool. I live at 1352 Turnberry, same neighborhood as Linda. It was 2 weeks of this stuff before Linda put an article on my door that let me know these were dangerous. 2 weeks I was walking around with my dog in my neighborhood without any clue that these things were dangerous. And we can talk about whether or not the farmer knew what he was doing or not. And if I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm gonna say there was nothing he could do right now, okay? Except he could have told us that these were dangerous, and he didn't. And I'm sorry, but if you're a farmer of 34 years and you don't know what is on your land that you're farming, and you don't know that it's dangerous to people and animals, I find that hard to believe. I believe that the soybeans are more important to him than people's lives and the dogs. And I believe that most people, when they hear about this, think we're all a bunch of whiners. They think that we are talking about something that is silly. In fact, when I posted on social media, I got a lot of people telling me deal with it and calling me all sorts of names and saying things like, oh, do you want them to clean up the cottontails as well? And that is not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a very dangerous plant, and one that hurts people. I gave her some articles. You have the article that I had found. There's a whole page, which you have, on the poisoncontrol.org, a government website, telling you that these are dangerous for people. You have an article that says this actually happened, and it's about a 13-year-old kid who had these pulled out of their lungs. So it's not just toddlers. It was a 13-year-old child that had these pulled out of their lungs, had to be cut open. And we've been waiting for someone to come in and do something about this. And all we get is, well, we're not, we're looking into it. Well, it's been way too long. And now the rains have come, they've beaten these seeds into the ground, so you can drive by and go, oh, it doesn't look like it's a big deal. I don't see any of them. But if you look under every bush in my neighborhood, you'll see hundreds of them, and they're in the grass. And next year, they're gonna be growing everywhere in Perrysburg. So what are you gonna do about that when they're in everybody's lawns and everybody's gardens, and the seeds are now blowing to your house and your house and your house? I just want to make it clear how serious this is, okay? I've been spending every day driving my dog to this Bicentennial Park, worried that it's going to get there eventually, but I have yet to see any evidence of it. Every day, this is just a pain in my butt and a pain in everybody else's butt, and it can also hurt us. People who have allergies, I'm sure that they're heightened right now. This stuff is everywhere. And when you look at the articles online, which it only takes about 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll find all sorts of evidence that this stuff's dangerous. And when you look at it, you're looking at studies and articles that are about people being harmed or animals being harmed in a field, not in a neighborhood. Because I don't think this happens very often. And I am not exaggerating. Billions of these seeds have flown over our neighborhood. Billions, and it only takes one to get in your lung or your gastrointestinal tract, and you have to have surgery. One. And there's billions. So this is a very serious problem. Thank you for your time.
I'm Caleb Bowling, 591 Valley Bay Court, Perrysburg, Ohio. Good evening, and thank you for your time. I would like to address the foxtail barley issue and discuss the ways that it has impacted my family and the community. Most important is the health of my family. Foxtail barley has caused my dog to become very ill on several different occasions. We have had to take our dog to the vet multiple times, one of those being an expensive urgent care visit, since our dog was having difficulty breathing and swallowing. Most concerning and worrisome, as our vet told us an infection could take months to appear after the initial contact with foxtail barley. We fear that we will have more visits to the vet and more health worries for our dog due to this issue. Foxtail barley has truly changed our lives. Quality of life has greatly diminished for both my dog and our family. It is still not safe for my dog to be outside in his own yard. We must walk him every time he needs to go out. We purchased our home last year. One of the first things we did was have a 6-foot privacy fence installed to keep our dog safe and allow him to roam freely in the backyard. Foxtail barley is wreaking havoc. It is constantly clogging our pool and filtration system. We are paying taxes on property that we cannot even use. It seems like nothing is getting resolved here. Bethel Assembly of God has displayed a complete lack of responsibility and community awareness. Pastor Starr has not been willing to assist. His solution of this fence is a joke. I wanted to reach out to an unbiased expert after getting fed up with the pastor's evasive and hypocritical responses. I contacted a member of the Ohio Department of Agriculture. He came up from Columbus to assess the field. His findings directly contradicted the deceptive claims of Pastor Starr. He concluded the fence is ineffective and will not provide any solution. He also said even though the foxtail barley plant is dead, that the seeds blown around will populate next year. He estimates 15 to 20% of the thousands upon thousands, if not millions of seeds that have terrorized our community will grow next spring. If my 6-foot privacy fence cannot protect my property from foxtail barley, this 3-foot fence will do nothing. This fence faces north towards the road to provide an illusion of action. That way people passing by can see it, and the church can boast about the 400 feet that they have put up so far, despite the wind usually blowing east to west. The fence is poorly constructed and already falling apart. It is extremely frustrating and shameful that a church is aware of the damages and harm that the field is causing, but refuse to act. The responsibility is on the landowner, who is doing nothing. Pastor Starr can claim that he wants to be a good neighbor and will do everything to prevent this from happening again, but when it comes to actions, he has done nothing. I'm looking for accountability. I have met with the church and spoke to them several times. Pastor Starr's neighborly solution was for me to sign a full and final release absolving the church of any wrongdoings and stating I would not hold them responsible for past or future damages to my property or health issues on my dog caused by foxtail Barley. I refuse to sign this document. I would like to see the church devote the same amount of effort that they have displayed in attempts of avoiding lawsuits into solving this issue. Their lack of response has been sickening. I fear next year could be potentially even more dangerous than this year. We want to see immediate action so we can have our lives back and enjoy our property without fearing for the safety of our pets. Additionally, we want a strict protocol in place where the church and farmer are held accountable and monitored to ensure that this never happens again. This is not an act of nature, but an act of negligence. Thank you again for your time and allowing me to share my thoughts.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Trish Spangler-Jaquist, and I live at 11911 Echo Junction Road. I know most of these people here that are speaking, and they've told you all the educational information that I feel that you need. Matter of fact, I think you've had it for over a month. Matter of fact, I think you're all very highly educated people, or you wouldn't have these positions. My question is very simple. Why has something not been done? Is this not a big enough group for you to act? Are we not important enough for you to take notice? I have a simple question that I'd like to ask each of you. I'd like you to raise your hand if you've come to our neighborhood and looked at this problem yourself. Sir, you've been out and you've talked to these people?
I'm just, and I don't mean to, I will interrupt you though. This
Sure.
This is not a, given, you can ask questions, council does not have to answer any questions. This
Okay.
is not a forum where we're gonna
I asked the
discuss
question.
questions.
He volunteered.
Yeah, you asked a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Certainly fine.
He volunteered the information.
More than happy to answer.
Yeah, has anybody else been out to look at it? I can't believe if you saw what we have to live with, that you could come back to your jobs on council and not act. That blows my mind.
Yes.
I am a taxpayer. I grew up on a farm. My father farmed over 1,500 acres in Perrysburg. Would never have allowed this to happen because he knew he had a responsibility to the public. Yet you, who we voted for, have chosen to turn your heads and put up a 2-foot plastic fence around an 1/8 of the problem, and you think that's going to work. Our pool does not operate. We've had to pay to have that fixed. Our dog was sick, didn't know until the neighbors let us know what this weed was. And I've lived in this city for 26 years at my current residence. Never have we had this problem. It was very easy to figure out where it was coming from. It was very easy to figure out something needed to be done. My problem, and the only reason I'm taking up your valuable time tonight, is because I don't feel like you care about what we are going through. Therefore, I put myself up here. I've made that choice myself, and I'm asking one last time, please, react, respond, do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Paul Drake III live at 420 Holly Drive in Oregon. I was born here, lived here about 2 weeks, and we moved to Oregon. I was called by two people that live out by Maumee Bay State Park. They're about as close as you can get to the park, and they brought up this foxtail thing. As I'm talking to the first citizen, he was out mowing his grass, and he's an elderly man. He went in the house, and when he came in, he was having trouble breathing. So I Googled this. I'm not a farmer. I've never been a farmer. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a rum-dum person that got elected, and I'm for the people. So I went out to his house, talked to him, and I said, Butch, all I can tell you is wear a mask. I said, I don't know what to tell you. I called the city administrator. He said it was new to him. I think it's real new around here. So I got on my phone, and I believed I Googled 13 News first. They had an article about it. So I read some about it. I looked at Channel 11. At that time, they didn't have nothing. 24 didn't, 36. And later that day, The Blade had a real nice article about it. So I got to learn a little bit about it. And then he wanted me to call a neighbor lady who lives down from the state park. It's on Norden Road. I said, no, Butch, I don't call people. If they want to call me, give my cell number. So she ended up calling me. She went out. She gave me pictures like he had. He had more of them than me. I had smaller ones, and she said her pool was filled like her pool, and thank God she had a cover on it. And I called, I don't think, Marie's here. I Googled the city of Perrysburg, and Marie's name came up. She was the one who spoke with the Blade, and I believe Channel 13. So I called her and I said, I'm looking for information. I don't know anything, and they wanted me to call farmers. I'm like, I don't know who the farmers are, who farms what fields. So all I want to say is, and I'm not here, nobody up here, just to let the citizens know of Perrysburg, nobody up here knows me except Renee, and she's not here. Nobody called me to come here, but I gave the city credit, and I was told that the mayor sent a letter today, because I wasn't able to make it earlier, but my buddy brought me out here and he drove me here. I give you credit for sending the governor something. And I want to say I read this, it was either 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, I don't know what it was. But like I said, I'm here to get information to bring back to Oregon, because I don't want this to happen to the people of Oregon and the animals that live out there. And like somebody else said, you don't have to be an infant to get it. I think it can be anybody. So I'm just looking for answers to pass on to Oregon. We have a meeting next week, but like I said, I appreciate you guys doing it, and I give the citizens credit, just like the ones that called me complaining, and I spent hours with them, and like I said, thanks a lot, and I'm just looking for help also. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, first off, before council speaks or anything, I do want to just commend everybody for playing nicely, I guess is the best way. This is a serious issue. We're treating it seriously. And you all came up, and it's not easy to speak in front of a group, as my stuttering will prove. And I think you did an excellent job presenting your concerns, how it's impacted you, and how it matters to citizens of the Perrysburg community. So I just commend you on that. I'll let the council kind of take the next step as to how it wants to proceed regarding this issue.
Thanks, Sam. So I actually do live back in Meadowbrook. So I live over in Stringview, so I'm very familiar with what I've seen over there. I know I reached out to our law director on July 2nd, once we really started to see everything really start to take off, because I can tell you, and I'm pretty confident in saying, I don't think any one of us knew what foxtail barley was when all this stuff happened. I went on, looked up through the USDA to see what we might be able to look at with them. I've looked through with the Ohio Agriculture Department to see what we can do there. Went through the Ohio Revised Code. Reached out to Kate, say, all right, what can we do? What are our options? What can we look at? And I know she's done some legal reviews on this, and if I'm incorrect on what I say here, but let me know, is how I understand that. Actually, I'll just ask you to explain some of your legal opinion on this, but since everything is said in the Ohio Revised Code, we have to go through the Ohio Revised Code says. And so we actually have a resolution prepared tonight as well to reach out to the Ohio Agriculture Director requesting that they turn this into a noxious weed as well. That gives us the most power to do anything. The other issue that we have on there, without that being listed as a noxious weed with the farm fields, the city can be held liable for going on those fields to clean that up. What's the exact language on that?
So, Ohio Revised Code Section 901.51 speaks to the fact that no person, and that would include the city of Perrysburg, without privilege to do so, shall recklessly cut down, destroy, girdle, or otherwise injure a vine, bush, shrub, sapling, tree, or crop standing or growing on the land of another or upon public land. So the legal issue that we have at this time is that this is not defined as either a noxious or an invasive weed. It is growing on an active farm field, and the city of Perrysburg does not have the right to go onto the active farm field and damage the crops that are growing on the active farm field.
And so I also asked as well if this is something that we can declare as a noxious weed, and I guess per the Ohio Revised Code, I think Kate has a...
Per the Ohio Revised Code, the noxious weed invasive weed list is defined by the Director of Agriculture, which is the reason for the mayor's letter and for, I believe, City Council's resolution this evening, because that is who creates noxious and invasive weed lists.
And again, I can say I've seen the stuff in my property. I didn't have it anywhere near as bad as what you have seen it closer to where this farm field is. So I can feel for you with that. We have a small animal as well. I have young kids, 3, 6, and 8, and they remind me every day their age. So it's something that I can respect and see the concern. And I can say that from council's perspective, I know that there's been numerous communications behind the scenes on what we can do and trying to find out what we can do. And I know the administration has been working to the best of their ability as well. Again, when we first heard this coming, it wasn't something that was familiar with us as to what the issue was. And then once everything started coming out, we see that there's an issue. But I can tell you that before I even heard about your issue, KR, we were already starting to look and see what can we do. And I feel for you. I'm very sorry to hear that about your animals. I know I don't have a dog, we have a cat, but pets are a member of your family. And it's something that no one wants to see happen to any of their animals. And they're the ones that are most vulnerable to this. So hopefully tonight we can at least get something with the resolution to try to find some way to solve this moving forward. I know if we were to go on there, let's say that we find out it's noxious weed, mowing it down isn't going to be the right answer either, because all that's going to do is release that into the weed. And I do agree that the only option that I can viably see is to do a controlled burn at some point. But we have to try to get the state moving on some of this as well in order to get this done. And if there's a way to put that in the Ohio Revised Code, it can give the city administration a chance to really take this to where we need to go. I don't know if any other council members have any thoughts or comments, but I can propose a resolution to have the conversation going if anybody would like. It's up to all of you on that one.
I would be very hesitant about doing a controlled burn without doing my research. I know of a field that I was working in southwestern Wood County where they did a controlled burn. Next year they came back and that weed was covered, because sometimes what happens is it shoots those seeds airborne and they don't get burned and it makes it worse. I think a combined herbicide and a controlled burn would be more along the lines. But that's something we should do our research before.
That's something down the road. I think the first step we got to do is get this in something.
I guess I'm assuming that this resolution is going to be passed, so.
I mean, I can introduce it so we can start a discussion more on that resolution if everyone's okay with that.
Yeah.
If you want to address how we can, or as long as you can do it.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted everyone to know, especially, thank you again for speaking. Your voices didn't go unheard. I did speak to Mrs. Templeton, Mr. Finch, we talked, and I did drive through the neighborhood. It come to my attention, I actually brought it up at the last city council meeting, and like Jonathan said, there were some behind the scenes things taking place at that time, and some of those recommendations that I actually received from you, I passed that on to the administration. So I think we would have acted rationally, and as you can hear, there's potential legal implications. We definitely didn't want to get the city involved in that, so I appreciate nobody acting rationally on that. And I don't want to see this thing happen again next year. In my mind, if we're spending city resources and extra time, because I'm sure the service department did not plan to attack this issue. This is something that just arose, that someone should be held responsible for those services. Whether we bill the property owner, I'm not sure how we handle that, but the other tax-paying residents here do not need to be paying for the extra services, in my opinion, for something that could easily have been addressed. So your voices did go, we heard them, and that was expressed. If you didn't feel that, maybe we didn't do a good job of reciprocating or getting back to you on that, and my apologies for that. But we are trying to do everything in our power to make sure that this issue does not happen again next year, right?
So what I'll do is, I would like to introduce Resolution 60, 2022, and move the rules be suspended to allow first reading by number and title only, and dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 60, 2022, a resolution requesting the Director of Agriculture and add foxtail barley to the noxious or invasive weed list and declaring an emergency.
I move that Resolution 60, 2022 be passed as an emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion.
So one thing for the residents here as well, with the mayor's letter, resolution will be going to the Director of the Department of Agriculture. I really encourage all of you to write to your representatives as well as to the state, the Department of Agriculture, in support of this. The more that they hear from not just us, but from the residents that were affected by that, and to see the photos that you have seen, and to hear from the testimonials what you've all experienced as well, hopefully go a long way with them. But the conversation needs to happen down at the state, and the more that we can get out there, I think the better. Anything else that anybody would like to add? Right?
Yes, please. I think we can all say just over a month ago, nobody even knew this. I think when someone sent the first pictures, I was just in awe. I have never seen anything like that. But I want to thank everyone that wrote in, and especially Linda, giving the extra information that you did better research than I was able to do. I was out of town for the first 2 weeks when this really came up, but the day I got home, I went into the neighborhood and see what I could see. But I do sympathize with you, and I think, and I'm really concerned that next year it's not just going to be your neighborhoods. It could very well be throughout the whole city. So we are, doing all we can here. But yeah, there has been a lot of conversations here ever since it started. That, like John says, behind the scenes, and we are working for you on this. We're really trying. So and we're going to do everything legally that we can do.
It was around the city council meeting, June 28th, that the whole thing came to us, so
Yeah.
it hasn't been.
Can I ask a question?
Hold
Can
on,
you-
let council finish.
When you get a chance, can I ask a question? It's a positive one.
Yeah.
And to piggyback on, somebody made the comment, and when I went out and looked in the neighborhood and saw that silt fence, I laughed. Because not only did I know it wasn't gonna work, someone should teach them how to install one. Maybe it takes a woman.
It's a shame.
So anyhow, that's what I'm going to say.
Maybe the mayor could summarize. I assume a lot of the people know, but could you explain the letter that you wrote to whom and what the plea was?
I told him to read the letter. He didn't want to.
Oh, okay, thanks for
Well, you can
just
summarize if you don't want to.
I will just summarize. What I did was I wrote the Department of Agriculture, the Director of Agriculture, first introduced myself, then addressed what we've already heard today is the Ohio Revised Code section regarding the establishment. It's under this person's authority, the establish, prohibit, and restricted noxious weed list, and that's his.
First.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Consistent with the theme, her responsibility to address that, and so I asked her to define foxtail barley as a noxious weed and this is not an issue that's going to go away. We've had health issues, so there's a current problem, and it's not going to go away, so that we need to address it next year because it isn't something that's going to blow over. We need to make sure that we address the issue and that they take this seriously. So I've written them according to the sections we want addressed. We'd like a response. I did not give a deadline for responding, but we will follow up if we don't hear anything. And then also, I know that we've been the administration has been in communication with both the residents and also the property owner and the farmer, and doing our own investigation as to what we can and can't do both legally and what is actually the best things to do regarding the plant as with farmers and other people in the business of agriculture in Northwest Ohio. So we've tried to do our due diligence. We've started from zero, probably like you guys were much more knowledgeable than I ever thought I would be about foxtail barley. But I think this is a perfect example of where an issue's come up. We're working to address it. And as I've told ones I have spoken to, that there are some limitations. There are property rights and agricultural rights of somebody who farms a field. In Ohio, there are certain protections to agricultural businesses. We have to acknowledge those property rights, but we also have to certainly acknowledge the health and safety of the residents of our community. So that was the gist of the letter. Marie has put that on social media today, so if you want to read the whole thing, it is there. And hopefully that, from the administration's point of view, and along with the council's considering, brings it to their attention that it's a serious matter not to be ignored.
It's my understanding from your letter, and I looked at a couple of those statutes you cited or Kate cited, the director has the authority to declare this a noxious weed.
Right.
I mean,
It's
the General Assembly doesn't have.
Right. This doesn't need legislation. This is an administrative decision at the state level. So to Jonathan's point, this is something that I think it would be helpful to either reach out directly, reach out en masse, reach out through us. I mean, if you want us to collect it, we can send them down. Whatever is the best, most effective way for you to get your message out, we'd be amenable to that. There are only, I think, 2 states that it is a noxious weed.
There is foxtail listed on 2 states noxious weed list. It does not have the word barley after it, and given that I'm not an agriculture expert, I do not want to commit to the statement that those are the same things. So I apologize in that foxtail is on 2 states list, but I don't know specifically if that they mean.
We wrote it dated July 14th. We will follow up in a month. I mean, that's at least the time we should get some kind of response, and if when we get a response, or if we don't get a response, you can send all your emails, or you can just meet with Linda, and we can continue to do that, whatever the group wants to do.
If I could add.
Sorry, go.
So since June 28th, this has been communicated to council and amongst council, if not weekly, daily. And we've been tracking what the administration could do, can't do, following the law and following our own resources. We were caught flat-footed ourselves in this ordeal. And so it's not that we don't care. It may be that we have to have a cleanup. We have community cleanups for ditches and so forth, and who knows where this is going to go. But we are limited, but it's not because we don't care.
You wanted to say?
So yeah, I had mentioned this. Stand up. Sorry. I had mentioned this to Kevin, and I know he probably brought it to you, but I just didn't get an answer. Do you have equipment like your leaf crews and things that might help with this? And I would just add that one of the residents that was successful at cleaning up his yard more so than others had reverse leaf blower that mulched into a bag, and that was the only thing that he could get to work. You can't use shop vacs, you can't use blowers. So I guess the reason I turned to you guys is because you have better equipment than the average person, you know? And I wondered, you know, I've seen leaf crews in the past, maybe not this city, but that have, you know, vacuums, and you vacuum up all the leaves that people take to the corner, you know, to the side of the road. So I just wondered if you thought about whether or not you had any equipment that might be able to do this, and maybe add that to the things you're thinking about, so that if you get a chance to take action, you don't have to wait another 2 or 3 weeks to decide, you know, what action could be taken. Does that make sense?
Yeah, towards that point, I would say we've sent our street cleaning, scrubbing machine out to that neighborhood a bunch of times to try and...
Just on the street?
Yeah.
I mean, these aren't on the street.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's almost like the 3-foot fence.
Right.
It's just...
I understand, but there's also some limitations as to our ability to go on a private property and do certain things.
Well, we'd let you go on our private property. I'll sign a piece of paper.
And I understand, but we'd have to take that, and I don't want to be, I want to be a little bit cautious about what I promise, because I'm not sure I can
Sure.
promise. Because there are lots of things that people want us to do on their private property that they say would benefit the city, and there's certainly a balance there. I would also say, and not to defer this from the city's responsibility, because we do have responsibility, although there are limitations. My day-to-day job as a lawyer, you do probably have, I'm not giving advice, but private rights of action. If you, then that's something that that is your recourse to do, because it's your private property that's been damaged.
I'm not looking for an answer right now. All I was saying was, if you think, while you're thinking about solutions, maybe think about what you have in your arsenal, and whether or not, you know, whether or not it'll actually work, you know, that's all.
At some point down the road, if it's something that...
I wondered about that same thing, but I think our leaf collecting system is just a short hose and only from the street. I don't think we can get any farther than when they pile the leaves up right at the end of the street. So I'm not sure if there's anything that extends that any further.
We'll look into it.
Maybe we can reach out to some people who have private lawn companies and have these mulchers. That's all I'm, you know.
Yeah,
Maybe we can pull together as a community and clean it up together. I'd be willing to do the labor, I just don't have the equipment, so.
Well, like Barry said, this might end up, if this goes citywide, it might be a community effort for all of us to pitch in and help.
So we can get this curved and work with the state and continue to push them. So, but again, if you have any letters, anything you want us to share, get it over to us. We'd love to do that.
Any other comments?
I think someone else.
Sorry. Yeah,
My name is Deb, and I live on Bridgeview Drive, and we're right in direct with the field. Anyway, Mr. Smith, when you said to your friend that you know here, I don't have any dogs, but I have a cat, so I'm okay. No, you're not. The other day, we brought in a medical box from our front porch, and unbeknownst to us, some of those were attached. And as my husband carried it into the kitchen, they fell onto the floor. I happened to see them before my cat did and got them picked up. If he would have seen them and started playing with them, he would have inhaled them. So no, your cat's not safe either with it being in the house all the time.
If I sounded like I said that my cat was okay, I'm not sure if it was...
Well, you gave the impression I have a cat, so it's not the same as a dog. But it's not true.
Small animal, but it's still, it doesn't matter what the animal is, it's still a family pet as well.
But it can happen by just bringing in your boxes off the porch. It can bring it in working out in the yard. I mean, now we have to strip down basically in the utility room, and you know, there's all kinds of things you have to do now because we have that in our yards.
I understand.
any other comments?
I just have one more thing, just so all of you know, I mean, after that city council meeting in June, Jonathan Smith, just in the administration, I want to say thank you for one, Councilman Smith, for acting on this immediately, getting with Kate, and then the mayor, thank you as well. I mean, he acted on this and knew he could send this out immediately. So I mean, we tried to do what we could. I feel like we moved in the right direction. I feel like we're getting there. This government, right? We don't always operate fast. You all know that. So we hear you. I just want you to know that. And again, thank you, Mr. Mayor and President Smith. Thank you.
But do we have an issue before council, but if you have a couple brief points,
Not about the invasive species.
can we wait till just?
Sure.
More than happy to
Okay.
do that sometime. Deborah, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I'd like Connie to go ahead of me.
Well, if this is a different topic. Well, we got to
I'm
vote.
on the same
We'll
topic
vote,
she's
okay.
on.
All right, any other questions for council? Roll call?
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes. Okay, if you don't have a copy of the resolution, we can get one out of social media, or we can have a couple here. I have to keep mine, but we'll try and get that out. We'll get Maria to put that out, so everybody has a copy of what the council did as well.
And hopefully Kate or Amber, if one of you can make sure to submit that to the, we'll do that as well.
Can I give you these other articles?
Yes, you can, and I will distribute them to everybody. And everybody's welcome to stay. We'll take a brief second if you find this to be not that exciting and you have better things to do, like take care of your animals or something like that. You're more than welcome to stay, but we would certainly understand if your issues covered. All right. All right, we'll move on to the next citizen concern. You're up.
Hi, I'm Connie Karcher, and I live at 345 West Front Street. Thanks for letting me kind of voice my concerns. This is more of an informational time for me. Living on 345 West Front Street, I'm a Riverview resident. So I see a beautiful towpath right out my backyard. And having lived there now for 23 years, I've seen the towpath go from this to this. That's fine. It's grass. People, they get traction and they leave the towpath and come up on the property. That's fine too. But the other day I received the letter left at my front door talking about the 10-foot wide path that's going to be installed in 2024. There are good things about paths. My only concern is, number one, that probably trees will have to come down, vegetation will have to be moved out, and anytime you start moving trees and vegetation, you have erosion. And I've seen that firsthand, having changed our landscape in our backyard, and the hill has changed drastically over the past 10, 15 years. So landscaping will change, land erodes, asphalt will probably be put down, right? What's going under the asphalt and what sort of plans have been put into place, or what sort of retaining system is going to be used to prevent that asphalt path from being this to this and slanting toward the river? Any thoughts?
Actually, we saw your post on social media.
Yes, yes.
And our engineer has answers to all your questions, or at least the start of a dialogue, and we didn't have your email.
Oh.
So I forgot to reach back out to you, and I apologize.
No problem.
But after our public information officer is right over there, if you want to give Marie the information, we will, because I know that the administration has worked through a lot of those questions because they're very legitimate concerns.
Yeah, yeah.
And I totally respect that because you know, I think everybody thinks that it's a good idea to have a multi-use path down there, but I think there's also some very legitimate concerns about the environment and its application, and then how it impacts the neighbors. I think those are all totally fair questions.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have that dialogue, and I didn't want to have it on social media, because I try not to get into debates on social media, because I really...
Well, it's a lot of detail,
Yeah,
I think.
it's a lot, and actually there were a lot
yeah.
of very good questions that required our engineer to go through. And I don't want to cut you off other than to say we took your question seriously. We had people working on it, and we have answers, and we will get them to you. And then hopefully that will start
Okay.
the ball.
So I'm sure that she could share one other thing is, why 10 feet wide?
Why what?
Why 10 feet wide? Why a 10-foot wide path?
Yeah, I think that's the required state requirement.
It's required by state for what purposes? Walking or to have cars?
Or pedestrians and bicyclists.
Right.
10 feet wide?
Yes.
Is there an intent to allow vehicles on that path?
No.
Yes, no.
Yes, no?
No. The answer is yes.
Okay, she's correct, yes. Okay, so there won't be snow plows by the city, no emergency vehicles, nothing like that?
No snow plows. We don't anticipate if an emergency takes place down there, a medic unit may have to go down there. And there may be a service vehicle that has to service utility structures that are along the path.
But I think in the past, we have made sure we put
We've had
devices.
bollards,
Ballards, that's
other
what it's
devices.
Yeah, I mean, even
That-
for someone to come and take care of, say, my backyard, I have to make
Right.
arrangements for them to get
It'll be the same kind of
accessibility. Okay, well, I think I'll have a chat with you.
I've replied to your message, to your Facebook post.
Okay.
Comment, I replied to it.
All right, so is this information, the answers to my questions, will this also be available, say, on the City of Perrysburg website? Because I know there are a lot of other people like me.
It will now.
Yeah, I can't believe no one else asked these questions.
Yeah, no, you are not.
Okay.
So that's a good point.
So that, and then lastly, another concern is, so we have the money to put this together. What about the money to maintain it? Because there's nothing worse than something that is falling into the river, unless you do have a retaining system set up. And, asphalt cracks, it crumbles.
Yes, if we're going to do it, it has to be done well and maintained well. So I think the answer is yes. That's, I think, built into the cost of kind of operations. You can't pave a road, you can't build a multi-use path without
Sure.
factoring into the costs.
Okay, and then that comes from our taxes. Okay, we'll have a big chat. Thanks. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I forgot to send it to you. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. I've got it now.
Hi, Deborah Bourne, 125 East Front Street, Perrysburg, Ohio. I'd like to say that this administration is apparently unaware building a 10-foot wide road along the Maumee River will cause severe environmental damage in the area from which it passes. The administration is ignoring that the area was a center of the Native American settlement before the arrival of the Europeans, involving the Underground Railway before the Civil War. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I speak to the subject?
You are the only participant in the conference. Please press any key on your keypad to remain in the conference.
Okay.
Yep, my name is Chris Barry. I've lived for 30 years at 341 West Front Street, looking down at Water Street, and what I regard as, and have used very frequently, a path which is really a nature trail. There's no two ways about it. We have deer, fox, coyote, geese, and these last few days a very nice family of turkeys, if they survive Thanksgiving. They were there. And even a wild a turkey vulture came and sat on the post and watched them. That post, incidentally, is one of the posts that was put in when the last sewer run was fixed about 25 years ago, and that post is now sitting at an angle, I measured today, of just over 20 degrees. That shows you the erosion, the sliding. It's a clay.
You'll be disconnected.
It's a clay foundation. To put a path there will require serious engineering to put a stable path there. It is a nature trail. Are we turning it into a road? Please, no.
No. Yes, it's not being turned into a road.
The asphalt from Orleans Park to the bridge, though, that gets plowed by a snowplow. We don't want snowplows. I cross-country ski. I have friends who cross-country ski from Hood Park all the way along to Fort Meigs. And when we come to the asphalt from Orleans Park to the bridge, they have to avoid it. You can't ski on it when it's been snowplowed. The last point I'd like to make is, and obviously we don't like it, but it appears inevitable, but turning a nature trail into a road is not what we should be doing. we have enough trouble trying to keep things alive on the street side, where we're spraying chemicals to kill mosquitoes that don't live on the street. Mosquitoes live in swamps, in stagnant water. Please don't spray my garden. Spray the milkweed, spray the monarch butterflies. There are no mosquitoes there. There are lots of other good animals. I don't know how to stop that, but that's another problem. What I will address, though, is down at Water Street, if you put that multi-use path, whatever that means, with lighting on it, with LED lighting, are you really trying to kill the fireflies too? Go down there now, any evening this month, last month, next month, full of fireflies as it gets dark. The best way to drive away the fireflies is to compete with them with other lights. We don't want lighting. We want our fireflies. Please, it's a nature trail, not a road. Thank you.
Okay, any other citizens' comments? If not, move forward. My report will be brief. I do have 3 people to appoint. Can I do these all at one time, or do you want?
Yeah, it's fine, do them once.
All right. I would like to recommend Matt Sutter to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Michelle Sweetster for the Way Library Board. All these are the result of resignations or filling terms. And Cole Christian, Perrysburg High School, student to serve on the Citizens Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Those are my recommendations.
I will move to move forward those recommendations along to the respective boards.
Second.
Roll call or discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
That's the end of my report. City Administrator?
No report. The live streaming, I believe in one of my last council updates, maybe a week ago, I gave a status update. And again, the status is that the staff who would be building agendas is currently studying the month of July up to the next council meeting, perfecting that technique and working out any issues or bugs with the templates with our consultants. And then our IT department is interfacing with ProVideo in order to create some of the additional flexibility with the board over there next to our law director for that live streaming function. So we think we'll be ready to go at the next council meeting on August 16th.
You mean the computer screen?
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
They said board, so I was looking at one of those boards.
Calling it the board.
Sorry, it just threw me off for a second. I thought we were removing a panel or something.
Which would help us out.
It might.
So we're moving forward with that.
Okay.
Finance Director?
No report.
Law Director?
I would request executive session, but I would ask that you move that to the end. I simply asking that we need an executive session this evening, please.
So we'll have something other business.
I think we need to say the purposes of purchase and sale of real estate and potential litigation.
I assume they would do that when they actually went into executive.
Well, yeah, good luck with that. Thank you. President Council.
No report at this point. I appreciate everyone who came out today to talk about the Fox and Barley and everything else that they've done to bring this to town, or at least to our attention. That's it.
All right, very good. Finance Committee?
Thank you, Your Honor. Bear with me, it's a little bit long, but I'll try real fast.
You like to write stories, right?
Yes. The meeting was called to order at 5:30 on July 12th by Chairman Mark Weber. Committee members present were Tim McCarthy and Jonathan Smith. Also present were Bridget Cabot, City Administrator, Amber Rathburn, Finance Director, and Kayla Trago, Deputy Finance Director. There were no objections to the minutes from June 14th, and they were approved 3-0. And the appointment to the Way Library Board that we just voted on, Michelle Sweetser was present to be considered for appointment to the Way Public Library Board. I told her that her application was very impressive. Ms. Sweetser said that she has had a career in academic libraries, and it'll be a pleasure to serve the city and the library. Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Smith agreed that we were lucky to have her. The committee board agreed 3-0 to recommend approval of appointing Ms. Sweetser to the Wake Public Library Board. The request to establish a new payroll clearing fund. Ms. Rathburn requested permission to establish a new payroll clearing fund. She explained that when the payroll is prepared, the gross amount of payroll and the related taxes and pension costs will be transferred to the payroll clearing fund. This will make it easier to track outstanding items with the new finance software. Mr. Smith asked if there was a separate fund right now, and Ms. Rathburn said there is not. The committee agreed 3-0 to recommend approval of creating a payroll clearing fund. A request to set a dollar amount limit for blanket purchase orders. Ms. Rathburn explained that according to the Ohio Revised Code, City Council has to set the dollar amount limit for blanket purchase orders. She said that right now we do not use blanket purchase orders, but currently all purchase orders are for specific dollar amounts to specific vendors. Due to emergencies and routine purchases of smaller items, blanket purchase orders can be issued for a certain budget line item, and then as a purchase is made, it is applied to the blanket purchase order. The use of blanket purchase orders does not eliminate the use of regular purchase orders. It just allows purchase orders to cover more purchases because it covers situations that typically have not used purchase orders in the past. I said purchase a lot. I just can't. Mrs. Trago said that only one blanket purchase order will be allowed per account code at the same time. Ms. Rathburn said that they need to be closed at the end of the year. I asked for clarification that the end of the year meant the end of the calendar year, and Ms. Rathburn said yes, that's correct. The committee expressed concern about who would be allowed to make purchases and what oversight and transparency there would be. Ms. Cabot said it'll still be the supervisor's responsibility to approve purchases. Mr. McCarthy said it is proposed legislation. In the proposed legislation, it says legal level of control, and he wondered what that was referring to. And Ms. Rathburn said it means the budget. I asked if Ms. Rathburn has a recommendation for the dollar amount for blanket purchase orders, and she said that she checked with other municipalities, and currently any purchases over $25,000 have to go to City Council for approval, so she feels $25,000 is a reasonable amount. Mr. Smith, in all his wisdom, said that the $25,000 amount could be changed in the future, so that he recommended that instead of a certain dollar amount, that the language read not to exceed the amount in section 252.05A to A. Committee agreed 3-0 to recommend approval of suggested limit for blanket purchase orders. Next is the approval of then and now purchases. It's a catchy phrase. Ms. Rathburn said that all payments made need to be certified by the finance director. If there was no purchase order issued prior to the purchase being made, Ohio Revised Code section 5705.41D1 says that as finance director, she can approve anything under $3,000, but anything over that amount has to be approved by City Council. She presented the committee with a list of 6 items that fall within that criteria. Mr. McCarthy asked how these purchases were made without a purchase order. Ms. Cabot said that the purchasing policy didn't require purchase orders for a lot of items. She said that currently a new purchasing policy has been drafted and is being reviewed by the staff. The committee agreed 3-0 to recommend approval for payment of these items. Budget amendments. Ms. Rathburn said that in the past, budget amendments were only brought to City Council at the end of the year, but she would like to bring them during the year as needed. She reviewed the list of 5 adjustments requested. She said the first was an increase in the amount of fireworks because the cost increased. Mr. Smith said it was well worth the additional amount. The next 2 adjustments moved dollars from one line item to another with a $0 effect. And the final 2 adjustments involved court expenditure line items. Ms. Cabot said that the funds are in the 238 and 239 funds, but they just didn't request the corresponding appropriations in the original budget. The committee agreed 3-0 to recommend approval of the proposed budget amendments. The tax commissioner's report, Mr. Bronder was not present, so Ms. Rathburn reviewed year-to-date tax collections. She said that if you remove the $1.4 million anomaly discussed at prior meetings, income tax revenue is up about $2 million from June of 2021, which is an increase of about 16%. She said that going forward, we should have good numbers for comparison because there should not be any more timing issues caused by due date changes in prior years. The Finance Director's report, the committee reviewed expenditures over $5,000 for the month of June. The committee had questions about payments to the Northwestern Water and Sewer District, OWDA, iProject Solutions LLC, SHI, Clark Schaefer, Hackett, and Toledo Edison. I asked if the table for the engineering was in the budget. Ms. Cabot said it was. Mr. Smith asked about the solar presentation that was previously made to council. Ms. Cabot said Palmer Energy, our energy consultants, did the calculations and advised against the city participating in the solar project. Mr. Smith also asked about Amplex and the fiber optic cable line. Ms. Cabot said that they are still working on getting it to Roaston Road. The committee reviewed the health insurance fund balance and said, although claims seem to be up in June, the balance is still healthy at $730,903.80. Ms. Rathburn called attention to the investment summary presented to the committee. She said that per the city's investment policy, the Finance Committee is to be updated quarterly on the city's investments. She said that the Star Ohio balance was at 0 as of June 30th, but that will change. She said that it is run by the state and they have an attractive overnight rate. There being no further business, the meeting adjourned at 6:18 p.m. I have 4 pieces of legislation to introduce. If there's no objections, I'll introduce the 2 resolutions together and the ordinances I'll do separate. So I would like to introduce resolutions 61 and 62, 2022, and move that the rules be suspended to allow for their readings by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 61, 2022, a resolution establishing a blanket purchase order amount limit as required by Ohio Revised Code 5705.41D3. Resolution 62, 2022, a resolution to approve the now certificates in the amount of $62,239.63 as attached to Exhibit A for the City of Perrysburg and declaring an emergency.
I move that resolutions 61 and 62-2022 be passed.
Second.
Discussion.
I do have one quick question. I just want to confirm that resolution 62, 2022 isn't for any purchases of any books. Okay.
No. Thank you.
Although
I didn't give it a name.
we could.
So the quotes, you just use the title of the book, so I just want to.
One of our members is the author of a book now. Roll call.
Sorry, I just add one thing about resolution 61-2022. Can you just give me an example of like some of the items or purchases? I know I mentioned some of the smaller items. I'm just trying to kind of understand.
Absolutely, Amber can.
Sure. It's mainly items that aren't required to have purchase order right now, so it would be more stringent. Things could be like concrete, asphalt, stone, fuel, pipes, water meters, valves.
There's also a timing issue, Sunday or Saturday night at whatever time you need to purchase something. You have to go
Emergency
water break, you gotta go purchase something. You don't. Bad practice in the past, and this is something Amber's been working diligently to fix, is that they could just go purchase it and figure it out later. This will now say you have the authority to spend money to do that, but you have to then record it, do all those other things, and so,
Thank you.
Good question, roll call.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Next, I would like to introduce ordinance 42-2022 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 42, 2022, authorizing all actions necessary to establish a payroll clearing fund.
I move that ordinance 42-2022 be passed.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
I would like to introduce ordinance 43-2022 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 43, 2022, and ordinance amending ordinance 54, 2021, previously amended by ordinances 4 and 8, 2022, to amend appropriations for current expenditures and other expenditures for the year ending December 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
I move that ordinance 43-2022 be passed as an emergency measure.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Okay, the next scheduled meeting for Finance and Economic Development Committee is Tuesday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. Send my report.
Thank you.
And my book club.
Safety Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have no report, but our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, July 26th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Recreation Committee?
Thank you, Mayor. The meeting was called to order at 6:35 p.m. by myself. Committee members present were Councilman Kuhlman and Councilman Van Huzen. Also present was City Administrator Ms. Cabot, as well with us. Approval of prior month's meetings. There's no objections. The appointment to fill the student vacancy, we've already talked about him and already approved him. So let's skip on down to the dog park. Ms. Cabot said that she sent emails to the committee last week with information regarding possible sites for a dog park. She said that a group of staff members got together to evaluate the locations and consider the AKC guidelines which were recommended by our insurance carrier. She said that the staff felt that Three Meadows Park would be the recommendation based off the sight line for police, nearby parking, water availability, and the shade component. The guidelines also say the site should be no less or not be less than an acre. She said that the planning and zoning has reached out to a fence company to get quotes for a 4-foot as well as a 6-foot fence at Three Meadows Park. The planning and zoning code does not allow chain link in a front yard, so the quote is for an aluminum type on the front side and the rest with vinyl coated chain link. The committee discussed the cost for both Three Meadows Park and Bicentennial Park. Ms. Cabot said that the price could be lowered at the Three Meadows if the 4-foot fence was used instead of 6-foot. Mr. Van Huzen asked if we got an estimate for Orleans Park. Ms. Cabot said that she does not know if the dog park cost was included in the master plan, but she can check with consultants. Mr. Smith suggested that we could start with a smaller size in the area. We can add to it to keep the initial startup cost down. The committee agreed that they would like to get public input on the subject. They requested that the PIO ask the community for feedback regarding the options discussed. It was suggested that the item remain on the agenda at the next meeting date to be included in the information shared by the PIO. The awards were bid for the playground equipment at Municipal Woodlands and Bicentennial Park. Ms. Cabot said that 2 bids were received for the purchase of playground equipment for Municipal Woodlands and Bicentennial Park. The low bid was from the DWA Recreation in the amount of $1.5,492.85, which includes fencing at Woodland Park, because we felt we could get a better price if we included it with this project. She stated that the day before bids were due, the engineer was contacted by one bidder with a question, and there was not enough time to issue an addendum to all Hoopole plans. She said that we may have understated the stone base, and in one section about the poured in place rubber surface, a line was left off for Woodlands Park. The engineer extrapolated those numbers based on the bid submitted, and DWA was still the lower bidder. There was some discussion regarding the cost of rubber, type, material, and timing. Ms. Cabot said that she believes once the order, it will take about 11 to 12 weeks to receive equipment. Mr. Smith asked to see the renderings, which I believe we always received a copy of. Mr. Coolman requested that on the legislative summary for this project, and moving forward, it should, show the work of the 10% contingency requested by the engineer. He also requested that the budget amount be included in the legislative review, not just where it's paid from. Mr. Van Huzen said that he has reservations because this will be paid for with ARPA funds, and this money that people will be paying for a long, long time, so it's important that we spend it on something that's long-term investment. The committee agreed 3-0 to move this on to City Council. Our next regular meeting will be on Tuesday, August 9th at 6:30 p.m. Sorry, I'm not as good of reading stories as some people are, so. I do have a resolution here, and where did I lose my agenda? 60. Thank you. I was just trying to find the agenda, because usually go off on the agenda versus actually where it is. Thank you. It's easier for me to have one paper versus a whole bunch. All right, so with that, I would like to introduce 63, 2022, and move the rules be suspended to allow first read by number, title only, dispense with the second and third readings.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 63, 2022, a resolution awarding a bid and agreement to DWA Recreation in an amount not to exceed $1,500,492.85 with a contingency amount no greater than 10% for new playground equipment at Municipal Park, Bicentennial Park, and Woodlands Park, and declaring an emergency.
I move that resolution 63, 2022 be passed as emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion.
I am, eight people for your question.
Before the committee.
Well, I'll let council ask them, then.
The fencing of Woodlands, Jeff, is that around Imagination Station or?
I believe that is it around the whole thing, or is it just the kids area?
That's going to be, I believe, around the entire area for
Okay.
imagination. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this includes new equipment there as well.
Correct.
That's
That
part of-
this equipment for Woodlands Park will replace the existing equipment that is there.
I have a question about the bidding process. When it was realized that some items were missing, why didn't they just pull the bids and fix it and reissue it for bid?
It was found out the day before the bid opened.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can cancel the bid opening and then just redo the plans and extend the bid opening, redo the bid opening.
I would have to ask the city engineer.
Okay. Because, I mean, it could affect the cost. I mean, you can
Extrapolated it out.
all you want, it doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be right.
No, that is true,
Market,
which is one of the reasons for the contingency. Even though we are being told that the depth of all the mulch is 12 inches, when we actually go in there to remove the mulch, it could be deeper. We don't know if there's going to be enough stone, we don't know if there's bad soils, if there'll be a compaction issue. So we feel we're doing the best, that we have the best bids
Right.
at this point in time, given the material costs. And I think he was a little bit concerned about going back out to bid in the current market. So he did the extrapolation, used their unit cost, and did that for both bidders, and DWA was still the lowest bid.
But could have been potentially lower. Could, hypothetically. Sure. It would have been, chances are it would have been higher because of the work.
Right, probably are open.
But I'm saying the market has changed and it constantly changes, so it's a crapshoot. But I'm just was curious that typically if there's a wrong, I've been my experience that they're pulling every bit. But that's okay, I was just curious.
Okay, I guess with the question, is there any concern from our law director on the process?
No, we looked at this and the extrapolations that the city engineer did, and there's a clause in the ordinance that allows us to, or the resolution for any bid that allows us to,
First whereas.
or waive any minor irregularities in bidding which do not affect the fairness. And since he extrapolated for both bidders changes, not just the low bidder, I do not believe that this affected the fairness of the bid.
I'm just concerned about changes.
I have one question if we're still discuss this. Sure. This, you said that this is playground equipment for 3 parks and a fence at Woodlands. Weren't there discussions about a fence at Three Meadows Park for that little playground because it's
That
near
was
farm?
that was actually acquired separately. That was not part of the bid, that had already received a quote separate from this, so that is actually under purchase order.
That is going to
It's
happen.
up to 25,000 too, I was thinking it's,
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that was $20,590.
Okay, sorry.
No, I just asked that question to make sure, because I just moved it. So that's
Oh,
my
okay.
question. We have some in the audience who want, do you want to? Good evening.
Hi, how are you? Donna Friesner, 417 East Front Street. And my question is, why are we tearing Fort Imagination down? Why aren't we fixing it?
I know we've had some of that conversation in recreation, and I'm sure the administration can fill some of it, but if I recall correctly, some of the issues that has occurred is it is falling apart, and getting some of the replacement parts was almost next to impossible, from how I understand. And hopefully, Bruce might be able to fill a little bit more.
My understanding from our service director and our service department is that with the age of that equipment, which is 20-plus years old, that these companies switch out their entire schemes every so many years, so these parts are no longer available to put on to Fort Imagination, is my understanding.
Okay, then if you've got in this, you're spending $1.5 million on new playground equipment, and you have down here that it says that you want to use something that's going to be long-lasting. And 25 years is not that long for a playground. I was just there. It needs new, the vinyl on it is missing in places, but there's nothing wrong with the playground itself. I'm just wondering, it would be a whole lot cheaper to see about repairing it than it would be to put up a whole new playground and tear that down that the community built.
Well, I get that notion, and I helped build it, and according to my son at the time, I built the whole thing, but I can't afford one little piece of concrete. And I don't think that's probably one of the weak ones that's failing, but that's a different story. One of the issues, and actually the all-inclusive park was $880,000. One of the reasons, one of the things that both the advocacy group and the Ability Center pointed out to us with Fort Imagination, which did meet ADA compliance when it was built, was that it wasn't a very effective vent for people with disabilities. Using mulch, which I never thought of until they raised the issue, is difficult to use if you have a wheelchair or you have a walker or something else. The ramp leading up to it leads to nowhere. You get up the ramp, you can be in the playground, but you can't do any of the activities that you would want to do if you were a child. So one of the things, and it was a difficult discussion, was that was a community-based park. It took a lot of effort and it took a lot of pride to do that. And yes, time limit is that a lot of time? I'm not sure. But one of the things we want to do moving forward is we want to make it as inclusive a park as possible. It was at the time state of the art. If you go to the current all-inclusive park, the joy of the interaction and the use would indicate to me that it's worth it to commit to building another high-quality park. The equipment that will be used will be effective going forward for a long period of time. What a long period of time is, I cannot say. But I think we know better now how to do certain things, make it more fun, make it more interactive, make it a welcoming place, which is what its core intent was. And I think that purpose will be best achieved with a substantial upgrade. And I've been in the community since I was part of that in 1991 or 1990, and I know how much it meant to the community at the time. So that was certainly something that I thought about when we talked about making those improvements. And the cost is actually covering 3 parks, but yes, park equipment is expensive, and the materials to make it accessible and also to make it safe. So, you know, what I did when I was a kid playing on swing sets and slides was totally not going to be permitted on the concrete pad that we used to climb off, jump off onto. But, you know, all that stuff has changed, and this is I think the council's felt, and I totally support this, the notion that this is community funds should be used for something that's going to have long-term impact. Should be used by as many people as possible. So that, I think, is the investment in the community that we're trying to take.
I hate the thought of tearing something down that's still usable, and it seems like it could be fixed and built onto instead. That's my thought. I hate throwing things away. Thank you.
Just ask a quick question, and I should probably ask this in the right, but I know that we have the boulder out there that still recognizes Wallingford bricks for those who put it together for imagination. I don't know if there's anything on the bricks or not, but I know
there's names of people.
I hope that the intent is still to try to keep those there in order to recognize what was there as well.
And you have a good point. We can talk about that further somehow. Building on or preserving portions of it. I know there's no reason that if it's not broke to not keep it, but we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
We can have that discussion.
Totally a fair point. Any other questions from council? Roll call.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
No.
No further business.
Okay, planning and zoning.
Thank you, Your Honor. We met on July 6th. Present were myself, Barry Van Duzen, and Corey Coolman, also Kate Sandrato, our law director, Brody Walters, planning and zoning administrator, and China Pfeiffer, the prosecutor. The prior month's minutes there were no objections, they were approved, and you recommended, and tonight we appointed Matt Sutter to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The other issue that night was a letter we had received from Larissa Ortiz at 621 Echo Road about a situation she has with her property, and we passed out some photos to look out from her backyard. What is happening is that her neighbor behind her house has moved all his equipment from a business, a nearby business from which he had been evicted. And it created a junkyard of sorts with health and safety concerns, now a real problem. Mr. Walters explained that our traditional property maintenance ordinance doesn't work very well here. The person who's been cited under that has to either be concerned about the financial penalty and or just has a spirit of cooperation. In a situation like this, another option is to pursue a remedy by abatements, which is our more aggressive action that provides notice to the property owner of what is wrong with the property, gives the property owner a reasonable opportunity to fix it, and if they fail to do so, the city will fix the problem for them. That fixing can include cleaning up the property, cutting the yard, towing equipment out, and even demolishing the building. Mr. Walters stated that the photos we looked at that day, while they look bad, do not really do justice as to what it really looks like. Ms. Pfeiffer explained that this is too large of a project or scope for what the property maintenance ordinance minor misdemeanor is meant to deal with. Ms. Sandrato stated that there are really 3 ways to abate a property in the state of Ohio. The city will file under Ohio Revised Code Section 715.30 and Chapter 3767 and multiple city ordinances, and an action will be filed during the first week of August. Mr. Coolman asked what the city does about lawn mowing. Ms. Sandrato answered that it is an issue that goes through the service department. If the property needs to be mowed, the city sends notice that if it's not mowed in 5 days, service will mow it and the city bills it. Brody also pointed out that what's interesting about this is that the building behind this property that needs to be demolished, the fire department has already classified it as a building not to go into it. In other words, if there's an emergency there, our firefighters won't go into it because of the danger of, falling through floors and things like that. Barry Van Duzen thanked Ms. Ortiz for all her patience with all of this, and he added that she has helped the city a lot. She finally noted that she attempted to refinance so that she could afford to do some updates and improvements to kind of block out this mess behind her. But once the bank did an inspection of her property, it depreciated the value of her home, and she hasn't been able to move forward with those improvements. I commented that an abatement is likely the only effective way to deal with the mess like she has behind her house. We then adjourned. We next meet on Wednesday, August 3 at 5:30 p.m. End of report. I don't have it in my file, so it's yours.
Get the first one, ready to go. In the absence of the chairman, we have the report for the Personnel Committee held June 28, 2022. Meeting was called to order 5:01 by Chairperson Corey Coleman. Members present were Tim McCarthy, Corey Coleman, and myself. Also present were Bridget Cabot, Kate Sandretto, and Kelly Chalfant. There were no citizen concerns and there were no objections to the prior month's meeting minutes. There was a resolution regarding section 248.01 of the codified ordinances. Al Scotty, Director of Public Utilities, has provided notice to the City of Perrysburg for her intent to rehire and in order to ensure a smooth transition. Matt Como, the newly promoted director, and Ms. Scotty, temporarily both be titled Director of Public Utilities. The intent of the City of Perrysburg that this position will be filled by two individuals until Ms. Gotti's official retirement on September 15, 2022. There's money in the 2022 budget to handle this transition. Mr. Coleman stated that the code mentions one Director of Public Utilities and thought it would be wise to explain why we're paying two people during the transitory period, and the committee agreed 3-0 to move forward to City Council. Update on the Deputy City Administrator position. Ms. Gavitt explained that J. Raymond LLC wants to speak with each City Council member individually regarding some leadership and organizational questions. Bill put together a draft report on the organizational structure and will work with senior staff and leadership training. Mr. Coleman asked to keep this on the agenda for now. The proposed language change to codified ordinance 266.11-1B. Ms. Sandretto's legal recommendation is that we define any, quote, any 12-month period, end quote, so that there is no longer any ambiguity. Ms. Sandretto added that based on past practice, it should be defined as a calendar year, which is the same as a fiscal year for the City of Perrysburg. I had stated that 7% seems a bit high. There was much discussion between the committee members and administration. Mr. Coleman wants consistency and will allow language to follow for this to happen. Only in the first quarter of the year. Ms. Cabot pointed out that there could be timing issues. I was more focused on percentage in this scenario and did not want to micromanage the structure of the way the administration operates. Ms. Cabot said that generally performance reviews happen once a year. Under other business, Mr. Coleman requested all information on prenatal care and maternity leave if the city has a pre-tax daycare incentive program. Ms. Cabot explained that the maternity leave, each category of employees has a total of 60 days or 12 weeks, starting with using their sick time, then vacation and comp, as well as requesting unpaid leave. I suggested a health savings account. Ms. Cabot responded, none of the collective bargaining units have been interested in discussing that. Ms. Calpont added that there is a minimum participation required for flexible spending accounts, and a certain number of people are required to participate. Mr. Coleman wants this to remain on the agenda as an agenda item, and he stated that now more than ever we need to take steps to make sure our employees are being taken care of, that they have access to quality health care. Under our discussion with the mayor of Seattle, Mr. Coleman asked that they enter executive session to discuss compensation of public employees, the personnel committee, and members of the committee and the mayor. They entered executive session at 5:37 p.m. and returned at 6:05 p.m. There was no further business. The meeting adjourned at 6:05 p.m. Next meeting will be held Tuesday, July 26th at 2022, 5 p.m. End of report.
Want to keep the mic?
I'll keep going, yeah, sure. So I have the public utilities report. The meeting was held on June 28, 2022. I was present, and Jane Attorney and Jonathan Smith. Also present are Bridget Cabot, Kate Sandretto, and Alice Scotty. There are no citizens' concerns and no objections to approving the department's meeting minutes. Under the sewer credits tabulation, Ms. Scotty explained that there was a total of 3 sewer credits for the past 30 days. One is for an irrigation leak in 21 that was prepared in May of 22 at 799 Ridge Lake Court in the amount of $190.86. There were 2 sump pump failures, one at 528 Plum, the amount of $90.35, one at 26699 Amberwood in the amount of $212.98. Ms. Scotty added that the year-to-date total was $4,811.45. awarded the polymer contract, Ms. Sandrotto explained that this legislation was award the bid providing polymer to the city of Perrysburg wastewater treatment plant for 2023. Ms. Sandrotto further explained that 2 bids are submitted if both products achieve the minimum performance standards measured. At the same pumping rate, Paladine produced a higher density biosolids cake than Tidewater. Tidewater bid a higher unit cost in each year of the 3-year bid than Paladine, therefore making Paladine a lower cost bidder based on performance and 3-year life cycle cost comparison. Being no objections, the committee agreed to move this forward to City Council. Under proposed changes to the homeowner grant program, Ms. Sandrotto said that the homeowner grant program currently is for homeowners only, and it has come to the attention of the administration that may benefit the city to extend this grant to businesses, nonprofit organizations, and institutions. Thank Ms. Godsey, and I think it was a fantastic idea to engage residents and business owners alike. I asked if there was a maximum number of grants the city could give out, and Ms. Godsey explained the maximum is $200,000. There's a cap on that annually, and that is a budgetary cap. So through the budget process, more money could be allocated to that line item if need be. There were no objections. Recommend this to City Council. Under other business, Ms. Godsey produced a City of Perrysburg ditch maintenance schedule for the committee to review. Ms. Godsey explained that they are updating the ditch evaluation process, which will be concluded this fall. I mentioned the corner of Walnut Street and 3rd Street, that there is a catch basin there. I asked if the issue was for allowing parking there. Ms. Cabot said that this is one of the issues and concerns, as well as ADA spots, and there being a slope issue in that area. Ms. Cabot added that they plan to add approximately 18 additional parking spaces on 3rd Street, making that a one-way street. There was no further business, and the meeting was adjourned at 6:17 p.m. Our next meeting will be held Wednesday, July 27th at 2022 at 6:30 p.m. And just for the residents' sake, for anyone paying attention, we do plan to still discuss stormwater and standing water in the Grassy Creek area. I know I did attend when I think we're prepared.
Yes, I think we have a consultant coming in via Zoom.
Okay. I know I did talk to some of those residents, and they tend to be there for that.
Hey Kevin, what about the Fort Meigs ditch? Has there been any more discussions on that? Do we have a short time window?
That is currently under design still.
Will anything happen this year, or are we gonna?
Possibly not.
And then we have the problem with the wildlife and all that. So, okay.
All right, you got 2 pieces of legislation. I would like to introduce Resolution 64-2022, and move that the rules be suspended, allow for its reading by number and title only, dispense with the 2nd and 3rd readings. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 64, 2022, a resolution awarding bid and agreement to Polyline Inc. in an amount not to exceed $217,005 for polymer wastewater treatment solutions and declaring an emergency.
I move that Resolution 64-2022 pass as an emergency measure. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
I would like to introduce ordinance 44-2022 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only and dispense with the 2nd and 3rd readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 44, 2022, amending ordinance 38, 2020, 64, 2018, and 12193, which established a grant program to assist homeowners in removing clean water connections from the sanitary sewer system.
I move that ordinance 44-2022 be passed. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes. Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Service.
I have no report. My next meeting is Wednesday, July 27th at 5:30.
Thank you. we're going to go to executive session, and we'll get.
I would like to make a motion that we go into executive session regarding purchase or sale of property.
And you have to say everything we're going to discuss.
And litigation.
And potential litigation and whatever else Kate tells me to say.
That's what you need to say, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni? Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Newton?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Are we going downstairs or down the hall?
Just go.
Let's just-
Really, how long you guys
Go
Sherry
upstairs,
wants
that's
to go
fine.
downstairs.
All right, I'll make a motion to return back from executive session.
Roll call?
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Newton?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no objection.
There is no other business.